Antonio, congratulations on your film, Shaman.
Thank you so much. Such a pleasure to be here with you.
You know what? I love these type of films because it basically creeps up on you and you don't know what to actually expect. But tell us what was the genesis of this story for Shaman? How did it all came about?
Yes, well, I grew up in Ecuador when I was younger, so my whole teenage years were in Ecuador, and I was really looking for a reason to go back to Ecuador and go back to my roots and go back to the roots of horror, which I love so much. And my brother Daniel wrote this script, and it seemed like the perfect opportunity to do all those things and go back to where I'd grown up and, tell an exorcism film, but from the point of view of an Andean shaman.
I know it's wonderful that you actually told that story. I mean, it's been more than a decade since I've been to Quito, Ecuador myself, and I saw a lot of these indigenous folks walking around, especially with the iconic hats and so on. But tell us, why did you want to go to that route of telling, a story about, missionaries in an indigenous community?
Well, growing up, I had a lot of missionary friends, and to me, I always had a little bit of this kind of conflicted feeling because there were a lot of people that were genuinely good people, but at the same time, I couldn't help but notice some of the damage they were causing to the community in being missionaries. And so, the film also explores that idea of, the danger of certainty, the danger of knowing that or thinking that you have all the answers and then facing something that you're really not prepared for.
So the lore that's actually in this film, is that all fictional? Does it have anything to do with the Ecuadorian indigenous community?
No, the lore is very real in the sense it's very Andean, and this force, that is behind what's happening to the boy, I don't want to give it all away, but is in fact a real deity and a real kind of force that exists in indigenous Andean cultures. And this film, it was very important to me to bring an authenticity to it. So we worked with over 80 families of the indigenous community of Chimborazo. And together with them, we really made sure we brought the right rituals, the right limpias, the right kind of songs that are sung during some of these rituals to bring a very true side to the shamanism in the film.
Tell me about filming out in Chimborazo itself, because it is I don't want to call it like a remote area. There are remote villages in that area. I've only passed through it briefly, but tell us about filming in that location because filming it, I don't think it's actually easy out there.
No, it was wild. I mean, it was really an incredible experience and a very difficult experience. First of all, we were up at 12,000 feet. So anytime you moved too quickly, you'd literally lose your breath. And the wind would cut through you like a knife. Sometimes I'd get these headaches. Sometimes we were so close to the sun, it was just like being in a frying pan. And so it was really extreme elements. But at the same time, it brought a magic to the performances, to the environment. And really, this is a place where no film has ever shot before.
Did you have to create a production set, the villages itself?
So, no, the village I actually found with the help of my producers. We drove around for 4 days around the Chimborazo. And I was familiar with Ecuador, but not specific regions or specific villages in the Chimborazo. And so we really had to find it. And as soon as we pulled up to this place, I just knew in my heart of hearts, I was like, this is where we had to film. And even things like the waterfall and the canyon where, the film opens, we then went back and with my brother Daniel, who wrote the script, we put some of those elements back into the script, knowing that they were there.
So the waterfall and the cave, is it all in the same region, or did you have to go to a different region of Ecuador?
It was all in the same region. In terms of the film, we did shoot some interiors in Quito. So we did, shoot some of the interiors of the house, and we also built a section of the interior of the cave in Quito. But then everything else was up in the Chimborazo at 12,000 feet and in the same kind of walking distance.
Now, as far as the actors, I completely understand that you try to bring in some named actors into it, but did you try to use local actors into this case, or did you have to recruit far and wide to be in this film?
No, absolutely. We only brought three actors from the US and Canada, and that was Sarah Canning, Daniel Gillies, and Jack Klein, who play the family of missionaries. And they were amazing. But the whole rest of the cast was Ecuadorian and local, and in some cases, people that had never even stood in front of a camera before. So we had a really interesting mixture. We had Alejandro Fajardo, who played the priest, who's a very recognized Ecuadorian actor from film and TV. But then we also had actors like Humberto Morales, Segundo Fuertes, who were of the indigenous community. And while they were artists themselves, they hadn't done a lot of acting. And so it was a really interesting mix of local, authentic, and international actors.
So, for yourself at the helm, how do you handle balancing between, the experienced and the non-experienced actors on a production set like this?
It was fascinating and for me, an incredible experience. I think with actors like Sarah Canning and Daniel Gillies and Jed and Alejandro, I kind of would let them do their thing and then would go in and kind of tweak with them, but was very conscious that they had a very clear plan themselves. With actors like Humberto, it was a lot more organic where I kind of walked him through it and was closer to him initially to help shape that initial performance, and then I would let him go. So it was almost the reverse. With one set of actors, I'd let them run and then I'd jump in. With another set, I would jump in and then let them run.
Now, I know you're familiar with multiple languages itself, but could you tell us about, directing on a production set, mixing Spanish and English, back and forth? Obviously, you have to go through, two different type of mindsets. I have a goddaughter in Ecuador myself. That's why I go back to Ecuador, and sometimes she gets the language mixed up.
Yeah, the set was, it felt like United Nations on the set because I'd speak to Spanish to some of the crew and actors. I'd switch to English with other actors. We had a camera operator, Junior, who was from Brazil. My wife, Luisa, who's a producer, is also from Brazil. So I would speak to them in Portuguese. So literally, we had three languages going. And then on top of that, we had Quechua, which is the Ecuadorian version of Quechua, and that was going on. And that one I couldn't speak, but we had interpreters. So we had at certain times up to four languages on the set, just going back and forth. It was a wild, one of a kind experience.
You've done very well on directing a young actor like Jet. Tell us how you got him into the mindset of playing this character on in this film.
Thank you. Well, first of all, Jet did a tremendous job. He's a very professional actor. He's been in things like WandaVision and Doctor Strange. So after an immense search, we finally found Jet, and I was so relieved because I knew he had the chops essentially to pull it off. And then with Jet, we talked a lot about the extremes, right? Between the vulnerable innocence and then the, pure evil that exists within his character when he's possessed, and how we could kind of go from 0 to 100 in scenes like several of the exorcism scenes. And so it was just a lot of conversation. There was some rehearsal as well, but not overly, rehearsed because we wanted to let things happen organically. And then we also just talked about the human side of what's it like to be a missionary kid in a land you don't know, and for you yourself to not be sure if you really want to follow in your parents' footsteps. That's kind of the heart of his anxiety in the film.
And I love the story, like I said, but because it's almost it was like a challenge of faith versus non-faith. It was a challenge of faith versus being spiritual in this case. Can you tell us about trying to present both sides of views into something like this?
Thank you so much for that question. I mean, I think absolutely one of the central themes of the film is that anyone has the right to believe what they want, and faith can be powerful. But the danger comes in when you try to impose your faith on another, or you try to presume that your faith has all the answers and no other faith can contribute. And that's kind of the heart of the film is two characters, the shaman and Candice, have very, very different faiths and very different beliefs. And they both have to, in a way, find a middle ground to try and save this boy. So it's a film about the dangers of certainty. You can never be certain, and no one faith has all the answers.
Well said. Well, let me wrap it up with one last question. I've taken a lot of your time already. I know you direct from the TV world, and once in a while, the blue ones, just like Shaman, you get to do a feature film. Are you going to continue doing feature films, or you're back in the TV world again?
Well, I love TV and I do shows like Lincoln Lawyer, Hightown, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Those shows I love and I hope to keep doing shows like that. But yes, whenever I can, I do hope to also break away and do stuff that is sometimes more under the radar, sometimes more raw, sometimes more scary and dark, and oftentimes more personal too. And that's what Shaman is. And that's what I also hope to keep doing as well as TV.
Well, hey, thank you for carrying this conversation with me about shaman, and I really do enjoy you presenting Ecuador in the light because that's a nation that is not on a lot of people's minds because it's almost like it's a forgotten nation compared to Peru or Brazil, and you did very, very well in this film.
Thank you so much. I love Ecuador. Please support Ecuador, support Latin independent film. Come check out Shaman August 8th in select theaters and on digital.
Well said. Thank you very much, Antonio.
Thank
Next
you
time.
so much. Thank you.
Bye now.